After Tressel apologized, everything once again seemed to settle down until the Ohio Bureau of Motor Vehicles began investing 50 cars sold to Ohio State football players and their families, which was stemming from a report from the Columbus Dispatch that had been doing an investigation on two car dealerships in Columbus, Auto Direct and Jack Maxton Chevrolet. The Dispatch had been looking into these dealerships since 2007. And one thing seemed to came up with all 50 of these cars. It was one used car salesman, Aaron Niffen, that sold most of these cars. And there were reports that Niffen was very friendly with the Ohio State players, that he was given game passes, him and Jason Goss, the owner of Auto Direct. They both attended 7 games as guests of the Ohio State University players, including the 2007 National Championship game and the 2009 Fiesta Bowl. Now, there was early reports of documents that Thad Gibson, who played defensive line at Ohio State at the end of 2009, was when his eligibility was up. He had got a Chrysler 3000C for a sale price of $0, but by the next day, somehow they came up with some new paperwork that said the sale price was $13,700 instead of $0. Kind of fishy, but you know what? I guess I can kind of buy that. The thing that's becoming more of an issue now, Terrell Pryor. Terrell Pryor has been investigated about 8 different cars. They did kind of clear that up today, at least according to some of the reports that we're hearing from ESPN, that there may have been about 4 different loaner cars instead of the 8 that were reported before, and 2 of Pryor's original cars were being treated for engine troubles. One of the engines ended up dying, the other one they ended up getting rid of. So I guess you can kind of lean towards getting them off on the car thing in all aspects of the Pryor situation, and probably in the Gibson situation. The main problem with that is it's not going to be a bigger NCAA violation for Thad Gibson. It's going to be a bigger problem for Niffen, who the main reason he probably did that was to avoid the sales tax on the car. And if that's the case, which is what he's being investigated for right now by the Ohio Bureau of Motor Vehicles, he's going to be in a lot more trouble than Thad Gibson would be over this deal. So I think that Ohio State, if there's any good news that could come out of this deal, it could be that it's looking like, even though there's 50 different cars that have been sold from Aaron Niffen to Buckeye players, it's looking like the car thing is coming out cleaner than the Buckeyes had once thought. But we're going to go to the comments now from Ray Small. And Ray Small, as you know, former Buckeye, played from 2006 to 2010. He made some comments to the Lantern, which is Ohio State student newspaper, saying he had sold some of his memorabilia for money, and at the time in college, you're kind of struggling. We had 4 Big Ten rings, and there was enough to go around. And various comments about what he did, and he did acknowledge, though, that there were some deals going down on the cars in Columbus. Quote, "It was definitely the deals on the cars. I don't see why it was a big deal," said Small, who identified Jack Maxton Chevrolet as the player's main resource. The dealer did not return repeated requests for comment, and Small said he was specifically referred to Aaron Niffen, who has been running under the table, who was run into trouble and is being investigated by the state, as I just mentioned a moment ago. And Small also didn't have a problem implicating teammates, it seems like, and he said, quote, "They have a lot of dirt on everybody," Small said, because everybody, quote, "was doing it," end quote. And, that Ray Small began taking some heat from former and current Buckeye players, and he kind of changed his mind on what he had said to the Lantern, but really, the newspaper reporters from Ohio State, they called his bluff. They put out the audio, and the audio basically said the same thing that the article had said. Ray Small was quoted word for word. Nothing was taken out of context. So I think Ray just didn't think these guys would be smart enough to get this conversation recorded, and now he ends up in trouble because he lied about telling the reporters that he twisted his words. But that's Ray's main issue. But I think that now you're going to have to say, Ray wasn't lying about it. He has no reason to lie, and yeah, people can say he was in Tressel's doghouse, but, I don't know why he came forward, and the writers were shocked at the story too. But still, the point is he came forward, and you can say he was in Tressel's doghouse and had some problems of his own, but it doesn't mean he's not telling the truth about what happened. And I think that's pretty much all we're gonna have for today. Basically, what all this could mean for Ohio State, we're gonna go more into that later on in the week after talk about the past problems Jim Tressel's had with the NCAA, allegations Maurice Clarett made a couple of years ago about the program. But basically, right now, as it stands, the Tattooed 5, this is going to be a big problem for them, especially with Pryor being connected to all these cars, and especially with the Sports Illustrated report coming out about Pryor, which you're going to hear more about tomorrow, which is why this is kind of just a catch-up. If you haven't heard about what's going on with the Ohio State investigation, this is just a way to get you caught up, and we're going to discuss more about the future, what it could mean for Terrell Pryor. We're going to discuss that on probably Monday, after the other 3 parts of the article get published. As you know, the parts are just 1 and 2 right now out of 5, but the rest of the articles are going to discuss Tressel's extremely checkered past with the NCAA, along with the accusations Maurice Clarett and a couple of other Buckeyes made a few years ago, and the Sports Illustrated article that came out this Tuesday, and how that was extremely bad news for the Buckeyes. But Jim Tressel, amid all this, resigned Monday from his position as head coach of the Ohio State University. And once again, this was just something that Ohio State probably should have done 2 months ago when they found out Tressel covered this up. And this is just another way how Ohio State has completely botched the handling of this situation. They let Tressel slide with a 2-game suspension that he lengthened himself to 5, and just let him go. And now it turns out that the Sports Illustrated author sent this information to Ohio State on Friday. Ohio State got together finally, after taking all kinds of hits in the media for 2 months. They finally got together after they were backed into a corner and realized this is going to look even worse than what's already going on. Jim, you got to go. That's exactly how it probably went down, because they were backed all the way into a corner again, and they had no way out. So they decided to get rid of Jim Tressel, force him out, and I'm sure that they worked out a nice little severance package for the second winningest coach in Ohio State history. Now, this is, I think, what's going to be the main issue with Ohio State and the NCAA going forward, is Ohio State did not do anything until they were all the way backed into a corner. That's the same thing USC did. They got off kind of light in my mind, even though, you could say it was just Reggie Bush. That was an extreme amount of stuff Reggie Bush was getting. He was close to $100,000 in taking money. His parents were in houses. He had cars, everything. So Ohio State, maybe if they get off in this car thing, they can avoid the death penalty. But I can see that coming if everything in the Sports Illustrated report is true, which I don't think anybody has no reason to believe it's not, considering it's an unbiased source at Sports Illustrated. We're going to go more into detail on that, as I said, on probably Monday or Sunday. So look for that video coming up next. But tomorrow, we're going to have part 3 of the series. It's going to focus on Jim Tressel, his past times at Youngstown State, where he had a player taking an excessive amount of money, Maurice Clarett, a few others, along with allegations that his brother was on his coaching staff and was setting players up with bogus landscaping jobs. There's just a lot of dirt on Jim Tressel from even before when he was at Ohio State. So we'll get into that tomorrow, but I hope you enjoyed the first video report. Not all of them will be this long, but this is kind of a big issue here. Many of these will be shorter, but this is kind of a big feature kind of video. So once again, apologize for the length. The next ones will be shorter. Maybe even have a video blog up about the Miami Heat game tonight and the Dallas Mavericks. Just a quick blog on the game wrap-up and the insight on that series going forward. But for now, it's going to be Zach Durlam saying goodbye from Durlam's Dirty Dugout. And once again, look for the Ohio State Scandal Part 3 tomorrow on Jim Tressel's Checkered Past.